Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Forecast. I am Scott Pecorello, co-founder and CEO here at Weather Optics. And today we're announcing the launch of a new product set at Weather Optics that we believe will lay the groundwork for a whole new category of weather risk and intelligence tools that improve enterprise resiliency. We're calling this product set Critical Events, and it's a new and innovative way to understand large-scale and high-impact weather events that threaten to disrupt businesses, communities, and supply chains across the world. So let's dive into it. Critical Events is derived from our proprietary weather modeling, our impact risk scores, and our government-issued data. Our risk scores tell businesses how key operations will be impacted on a scale of 0 to 10, and we are now using artificial intelligence to cluster larger areas of risk and impact and identify them with a certain type of storm or critical event. So for our launch, we are starting out with the following types of events. That includes hurricanes and cyclones, earthquakes, wildfires, volcanoes, and lightning. This product set is available in our API and in our Insight portal for users to start accessing today. So let's take a look at critical events in action and how you can use them to be more proactive before high impact weather events. I'm going to go ahead here and share my screen. So what you're looking at right now is our Insight portal, and this is our dashboard. So this is where users go right away when they open our portal. As a quick overview of what this dashboard does, you're able to save your key assets, locations, routes, and live vehicles, and Weather Optics analyzes those assets for potential impact. I can also go here, I can pull up this bar and this table, and I can see detailed information about each of my assets, including the timeline. So today, tomorrow, 3 to 7 days out from now. This is all standard. This has been around for our customers for a little while now. And today we are introducing this new section here, which is under events. So if I go ahead and I click that, I will then be able to look at all of my different events that are happening across the United States and also across the world. So you can see they're color coded here, and I can toggle on and toggle off different events that I have. So I can look at storms, I can look at cyclones if we had any active hurricanes, tropical storms, or other systems anywhere in the world. You'll see here in a second when I turn on fires. This is pulling in data from across the entire globe. So it takes a few seconds to load in, but these are all active wildfires across the US and across other countries and other continents. I can also look at more specifically the US wildfires. So I can zoom in here. And I can see individual wildfires and a bit of more information about what they're doing, how contained they are, their size, and other relevant insights like that. I can also go out and I can look at our volcanoes. So if I zoom out here, you'll be able to see all of our active volcanoes across the world. And then I can also look at earthquakes. So these are all active earthquakes that have happened within the last 24 hours. I can layer on and off each of these different critical events depending on what I want to see in relation to my assets. Each of these events also come with further descriptions to help you understand what's actually happening during the critical event. So if I go back here, let's go back to storms real quick. We have some slight severe weather in the Northeast today, some tropical downpours. That's why you're seeing these higher numbers exist here in upstate New York. I can go ahead here as a user and select this critical event, and then I get this nice automated AI briefing of what to expect. So what provinces and what states are going to be impacted, the start and end time of that critical event, and then some details about what I can expect. So how much rainfall, in this case, it looks like 1.5 to 2.5 inches, some scattered areas where we're expecting up to 5 inches, which will probably lead to some flash flooding. We're anticipating high road danger during this event, and so we give you a description of what types of danger you can expect. That might be obstructions, slow travel speeds, weather-related collisions, and so on. And then more importantly, I can see exactly what assets are within that area. So it looks like I have 3 or 4 assets that are within that heavy downpour critical event. What's unique about this is that we can also automatically alert you of when your assets are going to be impacted by a certain type of event. So instead of checking the portal every day, we will send you an email alert that says, over the next 72 hours, we expect X% or X number of your assets to be impacted by a heavy downpour or a hurricane or a tropical storm or a severe weather event. So the idea behind critical events is to make it much more hands-off, much easier for our users to get a quick understanding of what they have in their operations that are at risk. And then if they want, to dive deeper into that and see what that actually means for specific operations. So again, if I looked at just high level, seeing a couple of my locations impacted by heavy downpours, and I was curious, I wanted to learn more about why those impacts were happening, I could then pull up my table here. I can see my locations that are in that critical event, and then I can go and click expand. And you'll notice here, I then get a timeline view of what specific key business operations are going to be impacted. So it's great to think of critical events as like the macro view. What are these large storm areas that are going to cause high impact for a large region? And then let me dive into specific information about which one of my key assets are going to be impacted, and specifically what operations using the weather optics impact risk scores. So is it road conditions that are going to be at risk? Is it flooding that's going to be at risk? Is it power outages, life and property? You can see in this case with our heavy downpours, we have some moderate to almost high road risk that's happening around 5 p.m. We also have a risk of flooding. We also have a risk of overall business disruption. And you can see later in the day, we have a slight life and property risk. So again, this makes it super easy for you to dive in quickly and see macro level, and then specifically what key operations are going to be impacted by a given event. I can also look at days out from today. So if I wanted to look at tomorrow, for example, and you'll notice, and I'll show that difference again. Let's look at today's events. I'll zoom out here, and then I can look at tomorrow, and those events shift and change, as do my impacted assets. So again, if I collapse that table real quick, you can see now we have a new threat in the Midwest. It looks like we have a severe weather event. So we're expecting severe thunderstorms. We also have a risk of heavy downpours and potential for flooding. And there's that area of flooding as well. So a couple of different threats happening tomorrow in the middle of the country. And you can see here, nice and easy, exactly where those threats are happening, what the outline is, and which of my key assets are going to be impacted. So I might be curious, there's obviously a high impact event happening right here with one of my assets that is expected to see flooding and tropical downpours. That looks like somewhere in Nebraska. So again, I can do the same exercise and I can see really it's a very small period. And that's likely because we're seeing severe thunderstorms, which typically don't last for very long, but a super quick spike in road danger, a super quick spike in flooding, and a super quick spike in the chances of power outages and overall business disruption. So that's a good way of indicating that a line of storms is about to move through, and we're likely to see very quick, very fast impacts. That can help me prepare my operations ahead of time and also figure out the exact timing. Maybe I want to move certain things from my assets to different locations ahead of time. Maybe I want to warn my customers. Maybe I want to warn my employees of these types of issues. But it all starts with the higher scale critical events and giving you a good idea of what's happening around the country. Beyond that, we can then look at our 3 to 7 day outlook and see if there's any other critical events that are happening. You can see still we're seeing some severe weather issues. A new area of flooding has popped up, and it looks like a couple areas of tropical downpours and flooding for Florida, and also parts of the Caribbean as well. I can also, beyond the storms, go and look at other information. So if I wanted to see earthquakes, for example, this is real-time updates on earthquakes. So anytime there's a new earthquake that happens, Weather Optics will report that information. We can also automatically alert you of that information. It looks like we have some activity happening in other parts of the world. I can see the magnitude. I can see the day and time that it was detected. And so very high level, but important information because I can compare that to where my assets are. Looks like we have another earthquake over the middle of the Atlantic. Most of these seem to be relatively small, although there are some larger ones. 6.2 magnitude over here. I can go to volcanoes now for a little bit more of a deep dive. So I'm looking at all my active volcano locations. I believe this also includes any volcano area that could be inactive over the last year or so, but has had some activity recently. And if I go ahead and I click on any of these, there you go. You can see that there was some unrest at certain points. Looks like the last update was from November, so nothing active that's currently happening. I can see the type of volcano that we're dealing with here Iceland, similar situation. This is a bit more recent. This is from May 28th at 8 p.m. and it was actively erupting. So again, I can zoom in, make sure I have no assets around that area. And it gives me a really good high-level understanding that there is or isn't an issue for my business operations. Going one by one here, still, we can go to fires. This is generally high-level information. I can see the date reported, and I can see exactly how many fires or what cluster of fires have been reported. So there's been a lot of wildfire issues in New Mexico, and we can see there's a cluster right here that's happening. If I zoom in, these are all different areas where fire have been reported over the last couple of days. This looks like from May 30th. A couple of these were, I believe, from June 1 over here. So these are all active wildfire locations. Now, if I went to US wildfires, it's a bit more detailed. We're pulling in more proprietary data here so I can see exactly the size, how much it's contained, the date reported, the last update. And I'll show you in a second, we also have predictive outlooks over the next 24 hours for any of these active wildfires. So I believe that covers the events specifically for the dashboard part of the portal. I'm also able to pull up, just to show you here, beyond just my static kind of location assets, I can look at a number of different locations and assets that I own. So if beyond the static locations, I wanted to check out my shipments, I can do that here. So it looks like I have a shipment going from Wyoming down into Colorado. It's super easy to plan shipments with Weather Optics to give us that origin, destination, departure time, and we return back all of this information and all of these insights. But now with critical events, I can also see if there's any storms that are affecting a given route or a given shipment. So it looks like for the most part, large-scale weather events are staying clear of this area. And I can look at tomorrow as well. I can look at today. Let's go to this upstate New York one, see if there's any overlap. We can also try Dallas to North Carolina. And again, we can scroll out today, tomorrow, and 3 to 7 days from now. Again, checking to see if there's any overlap with large-scale weather events. And if so, we can tell you exactly that there is a flood threat that's supposed to happen on this shipment, or there's a severe weather threat, or the following shipments are expected to be impacted by a certain type of hurricane, right? So it makes it, again, incredibly easy for you to understand high level, what do I need to care about? Why do I need to care about it? And what actions can I take to really be proactive and prevent those things from happening in terms of impacts to your specific key business operations? Beyond just the shipment risk, I can go to live vehicle impacts. So this is for our trucking companies or anyone who owns any sort of physical vehicle. Again, we connect directly with your ELD provider, so I can see the current weather conditions that are happening. And again, I'm really easily able to see if there's any critical events that are happening near any of my vehicles. So a good example would be the severe weather events. If there's supposed to be active severe thunderstorms for a certain location, that's a reason for me to be able to check and do sort of more of a deep dive into where my vehicles are and if they're at risk of a larger scale weather event. I can select between only impacted vehicles and impacted vehicles. This will only show you for today, so it's only showing you events for happening right now over the next 24 hours because these are live impact vehicles. Beyond that, I can look at my other different hyperlocal layers. So for any of the assets that I have here, I can look at my hyperlocal weather, I can look at lightning, I can look at traffic, I can look at radar, and I can look at my alerts as well. Now, if we go over to impact, this is the other place that you can use our critical events. This gives you sort of a unique perspective. You'll notice that instead of rating the impact on specific assets here, it's just showing you where all of your assets are located, and it's showing our risk scores as well. So this is unique because it allows you to see not only the Weather Optics proprietary risk scores like the road conditions index or the flood index, but it then allows you to see the critical events that are happening on top of it. So it gives you a reason why we might be highlighting an area for a critical event. So for example, I am showing a flood risk here as a critical event happening over the next 24 hours. And I can zoom in and I can scroll through time and I can see where our flood index starts to increase. So the reason that we have flooding and heavy downpours for this location, you can see our flood index is picking up on that naturally on a location by location basis. So again, I get that description, but I also get my level of impact for flood specifically. So I'm watching a flood event. Here are the details. Here's the amount of rainfall, the wind gusts, what is to be expected. And also here's the actual risk for a single location within that critical event. So I can see a 2 out of 10. I can come here to my legend and I can see exactly what that means. I can go north here a bit because it looks like there's some more activity. This is a 6.8 out of 10 for our heavy downpours. Again, I can come here. I can see that a 6.8 or a 7 means widely scattered urban flooding. And I can do that for any of my risk scores. So as I go through time, my events are going to shift and change. This is looking at Saturday now, today being Thursday. This is looking at Sunday, and this is looking into later parts of the week. Again, you can see how the critical events are sort of changing over time and how my risk scores are also changing with them to show why they're there in the first place. I can go through life and property. You can see for our flood event, there's an elevated area of life and property risk. I can go to our power outage index as well. Notice that there's a higher than normal risk of power outages that are happening in this area. Higher than normal risk of power outages happening in this area over here. And I can go through our business disruption index as well and get a nice overlaid version of where my critical events are and what the risk scores are, 0 to 10 for all of my key business operations. Beyond that, I can also have my nice timeline view. So if I wanted to check out how flooding or how power or how life and property risk was going to change over time, again, while seeing that overlaid critical events product, that's easy to do here as well. I can also go ahead and look at any of my hyperlocal weather variables. So again, this is a really good example of seeing there's a high flood risk. Let me see how much rainfall is expected over my area where there's supposed to be flooding. So I can scroll through time here, scroll back a little bit. And you can see we have this area clustered for heavy downpours for a very specific reason. It almost exactly outlines where that area of heavy rain is. You can see our flood threat risk is also outlining areas of extremely heavy rain. It looks like near Kansas City. I can click and see exactly the rainfall amount. Almost 4 inches, 3.5 inches of rainfall there. And so I'm able to quickly gauge what the rainfall totals are, what the high impact events are going to be, and what that actually means for my business operations. I can go to wind gust as well, check out those severe weather events, see if we can find some higher wind gusts. This gives me a real one-stop shop view of, what are the current weather conditions, what are the impacts to my key operations, and then what are the critical events that are kind of overarching and larger scale that might be affecting multiple areas of my business operations. So you can access our critical events either using our API, our Insight portal, or by contacting us on our website at www.weatheroptics.co to learn more. And thank you for listening. This has been another episode of Beyond the Forecast.